Hey boys and girls, here we are for week 8 and we're in our first ever week of a new reading skill, and that is making inferences or inferring, or sometimes people refer to it as drawing a conclusion or coming to a decision. If you remember our lesson from class, you already how to naturally know how to do this. You know how to make an educated guess. You know how to do that. So why do we get difficult with inferring? We get difficulties with it because a lot of kids think that inferring has to come from the text. It has to come from the text. It has to come from the text. No, inferring does not come from the text at all. So when we read, we pause and we make an inference. Now sometimes when we make that inference and we keep reading, we find out that our inference is correct. So there are times when you're reading a book with a character in a setting, in a storyline, you almost kind of predict what's happening. That's in a sense almost like a way of inferring, because you're literally taking what you know, facts or details from the story, and then you're making your inference, okay? So that's something that we've already known how to do, and we know how to make an educated guess. So background knowledge, prior knowledge is very important. So we want to assess that and bring it up and say, okay, I know a lot of information about this topic, so I should be able to make some really good inferences. Or the opposite, I don't know much about this topic. My background knowledge is very thin. If we talked about in class, Mr. Van Damme can make a lot of inferences in sports because I'm a huge sports fan. However, when it comes to cars and hunting, I cannot make that many inferences because I don't have a lot of that background knowledge. Okay, so our stories this week, again, we're on narrative stories and we're making inferences with those. And narrative stories, remember, have characters and a setting. We will be making inferences for nonfiction in the upcoming week. So know that main idea, we really focused in on just nonfiction, but inferring goes both ways. It goes with the actual narrative stories like we're doing this week, and also with back to nonfiction. So the book that we're working in, Boys and Girls, is called The Ready New York CCLS, your purple textbook. And if you have your page, it's page 178, and it's called The Penny Thief by Charlotte Fairchild. So what we're going to do is we're going to read this whole story straight through. Then I'm going to take down some of these note cards over here, and I'm going to write down things that I know and things that I get from the text. And I'm going to put all those together, and at the very end of this video, I'm going to make my inference. And you guys will notice your second graphic organizer is called The Penny Thief. This is exactly what you're going to write down, the inference that we make, the details that support it, and the things that we know that also go with our inference, okay? And you're going to have 4 inferences that you're going to do. One of them we already did in class, The Penny Thief. You get another story called Thinking Out Loud, and then you're going to make your own inference on Friday based off of anything that's going on in your life. So it's kind of a different thing because you're not going to read a story on day 5. And we'll get to that one when we get closer. So that video will be just about how do you make that inference and what do I want you to do for that lesson, okay? So here we go. Our story is very short. It's all we're doing. 1 story today, 1 story tomorrow, and then on the last day you're making an inference based off of your whole entire life, okay? So we'll get to that part, right? So it's called The Penny Thief by Charlotte Fairchild. My family got a parakeet on the very day that we moved into our new apartment. On our first night in the new place, we tried to name our new pet. I wanted to call it Tweety, but no one else liked that name. We couldn't find a name that everyone agreed on, so we agreed to think about it for a while. My father always emptied his pocket change into a large glass bowl in the hallway. When we wanted money for this or that, he would count it out for us from the bowl. The very next night, as he tossed his change into the bowl, he mumbled, "Funny, I'm sure there were mostly pennies on top," but none of us knew where the pennies had gone. Every day that week, my father complained that someone was taking his pennies from his bowl. We all pleaded ignorance. And every day that week, we discussed a new name for our pet. And at the end of the week, we took everything out of the bird cage to clean it. In every corner of the cage was a pile of pennies. That's when we learned that my mother had let the bird out to fly around every morning. "Penny thief!" my father cried out our pet, and our pet was named on the spot. Okay, so let's go to, I think, one of our easier ones, details from the text. Okay, so I'm going to take my marker here, and I'm going to go with red. You guys can go with red if you want to on your split screen that you're going to have in class. Remember, we set up how to do this on Notability. So you're going to be set up in Notability, and you have the details, and you're just going to, you can type them, or you can write them with your finger. You can use the text box there. Remember, we practice in class how to do both of those. So details from the text. So what are some things that we have here? We have that the family has a new pet. Family has a new pet. We also know that the father empties his coins. We know that the mom lets the bird out. And at the very end of the story, we know that there are pennies in the cage. Okay, so those are our details right from the text. The family has a new pet, parakeet, looking for a name for it. The father empties the coins. Mom lets the bird out, lets it fly around. We could also say that father maybe empties the coins and maybe realized he was missing a couple throughout the story. Okay, so I'm going to put this kind of over here. So now I'm going to take what I know. Now this is a little tougher for us because this is not from the text. This is what you have to know. So family, when you get a new pet, what do you know when you get a new pet? Okay, answer that question to your head. I have a couple things in my head. What do you get when you get a new pet? Could be a dog, could be a cat, could be anything. Okay? You make some mistakes, right? There's some things in there that you do, right? You can think of the new dog, you leave something out, the shoe gets ripped up. The cat, obviously they make messes on the floor. So those beginning stages, a little rough for the new pet, okay? So we know that new pets have some adjustments, and I'll put problems, okay? There's not many, pets besides like a hermit crab. I mean, that just sits there, and fish don't do much. Fish is a very easy one, but like birds or dogs, there's a lot of adjustments that the animals and the humans need to make so they can coexist, peacefully. So there's some adjustments and problems whenever you get a new pet. All right, father empties the coins. Coins are shiny. Coins are shiny. I know father is going to keep doing this. Keeps empty. He's going to keep emptying his coins on a daily basis. I don't keep many coins, but I'm thinking this story was probably written a little longer when people used, coins a little bit more. Mr. Van Dummer doesn't carry much money and coins around, but I know my father used to, take his loose change, his pocket change, and put it on the counter. And, as kids, we'd go up and, we'd take some of the coins, and he'd let us have them. So he's just going to keep emptying his pockets, right? Coins, I mean, to you as a kid, maybe like, oh, they're worth so much, but, you know, to an adult, it's like, I know that they're not much value, so I'm just going to keep throwing these coins out. You probably don't sit there and count them either. Like, there's exactly 64 cents in there yesterday. How come there's 63 today? Right? So I know that they don't count those because pennies even sometimes are, you know, are worth 1 cent. They're very little value nowadays. So, again, these are just things that I'm talking out that I know with you guys, what I know. I'm not writing everything down. I'm writing down my key parts as I'm looking things over. So, Mom lets the bird out. So, I don't have that much background knowledge. I've never had a bird. However, I did have a friend that had a bird out, and the bird gets to fly around the house. And if you've had a parakeet, you've had some very good background knowledge. I've never owned a bird. I don't think I'll ever own a bird. But I've had family members that also have owned birds, and they don't let them out. Some do, some don't. Some have to control them. Some, when they let them out, they have to pay really close attention to them. So there's another thing. I don't think Mom was paying super close attention to the bird when she was letting the bird out. Okay, but they fly around, exercise. All right, and we know that there's pennies in the cage. So what do I know about the cage? I know that the bird can't open the cage itself. The bird can't open the cage, and the pennies can't just get there. Again, a lot of times we just think these things through, guys, and this is our first week with these, so I'm really going through a lot of details about what I know. So I know that when you get a new pet, there's an adjustment period. Things are a little crazy, a little hectic. You don't have a schedule out, right? Coins, I know that coins are shiny and are attractive, right? They attract anything to them. I know my dog even will go up and smell whatever's on the ground, and especially, you know, anything that's new, so it looks new to any animal. And then the bird gets let out of its cage. I wrote down that they get let out because I know birds need some exercise. And then obviously the bird can't open its cage and its pennies and won't show. And let me put this back over here. And that leads me to my final inference. And I think you guys obviously are realizing this is super easy inference to make, Mr. B. Yes, it is. I am making my inference. The bird took the pennies. And I'm hoping your brains will right along the same with me. Okay, so that is my inference, and it is fully supported by everything that I got from the story, things that I know, and there's my inference. The story did not say the bird took the penny. Okay, now obviously the father calls him the penny thief at the end, so that's kind of like a giveaway. But let's say if we were to read paragraph 4 and we were to stop at the in every corner of the cage was a pile of pennies. Let's say if we were to stop right there. Then you make that inference. You make that inference of, oh my gosh, it was the bird. The bird stole the pennies. Hence the title, Penny Thief 2. Okay? So there you go, guys. That's it for today. Again, your graphic organizer, make sure you're writing those in there. I know I kind of wrote a lot and I left a lot out and I didn't put every little detail in there, but that is how we create an inference. Hang around for tomorrow, our next day, day 4, we're going to do another story where we make a completely different inference with a completely different narrative story. Bye.